All right, so the metaverse. Everybody loves to hate on this aspect of Fortnite so much. And over the last few months, I've asked myself, why? Like, what is the point in being so mad at the metaverse? Now, look, let's get this out of the way right now. The metaverse is not perfect, it has its flaws, but it's definitely not the failure that everybody is making it out to be. I honestly think that a lot of the people that have criticisms for the metaverse don't really understand what the goal of it is. And if they do, they kind of push that to the side in replacement of their frustrations for the metaverse. I like the way that Tim Sweeney put it best, and I'm paraphrasing here, but basically, people use the metaverse as a way to describe what they dislike about Fortnite currently. Like, the metaverse is this big boogeyman that's ruined everything that you've loved about the game. It kind of ties into the conversation we had recently about the uncomfortable truth of Fortnite. Like, people will not allow themselves to have fun with other aspects of the game that don't have anything to do with VR, or they want to see something fail. And when it comes to the metaverse, this is probably the thing that I see people want to fail the most. And listen, I get it. Last year, a lot of people, including myself, thought that the metaverse might actually get in the way of Battle Royale, inside of the true Fortnite experience that we were all looking for. But what later seasons told me was that that wasn't true. What that experience also taught me last year was something more important, which is that a lot of people's frustrations with the metaverse are rooted in misinformation. For example, what's one of the arguments we hear all the time? Oh my gosh, the metaverse is the reason why Donald Mustard quit. Donald Mustard left Fortnite because the metaverse was a thing. But every time you hear people give that argument, you never hear them explain that the metaverse was actually Donald Mustard's creation. You see, Donald Mustard had this entire vision that Fortnite would never just be a battle royale. That was their vision, their purpose, their goal from the start. They had saved the world, and then they were trying to rush out this BR experience because it was going to be an experiment, but they also wanted to tie in movies and music and other aspects of pop culture inside of Fortnite. That was always the plan. Now, to be fair, even if that is the case, that doesn't mean that the metaverse wasn't the cause for Donald Mustard's departure. See, the issue with it and a lot of the other contentions with Fortnite's metaverse is that it's a half-truth. Is it true that there were aspects of Fortnite that were going on at the time that took away from what Donald was working on, like his story? Was it true that he couldn't work on live events as much because of the production of the metaverse? Yes, that is 100% accurate. However, there's another truth in there, which is that Donald Mustard was currently getting burnt out with Fortnite in general. And this is the thing that the Fortnite community kind of needs to understand sometimes, is that two things can be true at the same time when they don't conflict with each other. Is it true that Donald Mustard may have been frustrated with certain aspects of Fortnite's direction because he couldn't tell the story that he wanted to? Yes, but that also doesn't necessarily mean that he didn't want the metaverse to exist. It could have just been the case that, man, he really wanted to tell some cool stories and he had one cool story in mind, and that had to be put on the back burner for the greater good of where the company was heading, and he understood that. But at Donald Mustard's core, he's also a storyteller, and he wants to tell really cool, compelling arcs. And look, to be fair, what better place to do that than with the Russo brothers in the MCU? That's where he ended up being. Now listen, to be fair, I don't know how true this is. This is just my theory. But I honestly think that in the back of Donald's mind, if he knew that there was opportunities to tell greater stories that could potentially be more significant in pop culture than just Fortnite, I think he was going to take that chance. Heck, even I have had those thoughts as a content creator. You can get completely burnt out with something, but still love it and respect the direction that it's going. You can't frame Donald Mustard's departure as this thing where, oh my gosh, Tim Sweeney was ruining Fortnite and he just couldn't stand to see his precious baby get obliterated like this, and so he's just gonna make a stand to the company and quit. It's not that cut and dry. That's an egregious oversimplification of what happened. And I'm sure that if Donald were to sit down and tell you himself why he left, there would be a good list of reasons that it didn't have anything to do with necessarily just the metaverse. But I would be lying if I said that I didn't think that part of it had to do with him being able to tell stories. Outside of Donald Mustard leaving, I think the biggest complaint that I hear from other people is how half-baked the new modes are, like how Epic is just releasing unfinished games. And once again, it's another one of those half-truths, right? Typically when people are talking about that, they're talking about Lego Fortnite. When Lego Fortnite came out, it was an unfinished mode. Let's just get that out of the way. There was a lot of stuff to do. You could have fun with it. I enjoyed it, but it didn't compel people enough to stay on the game. Now, that is for a lot of different reasons outside of the mode just not being finished, but I'm going to get to that in a little bit. I want to save that little detail for a little bit later. Eventually, we did get the complete version of Lego Fortnite, which is Lego Odyssey, and they're updating it semi-regularly. Like, it's fine, but it doesn't seem to be captivating enough to where it's holding a really strong player base. But then again, that begs the question, well, what is a really strong player base for LEGO? You honestly expect LEGO Fortnite to hold the same amount of players as Fortnite Battle Royale. If you're judging it by that barometer, you're using the wrong measuring tool. Even comparing it to Minecraft, which obviously it's another Minecraft type game, it's another sandbox open world game, that's not a fair comparison either. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Let's get back to the main issue that we're talking about here, which is these incomplete Fortnite modes. So, okay, LEGO was incomplete, fine. But what about Rocket Racing and Festival? Well, when I look at Festival doesn't seem incomplete. It's pretty basic for what it is. It's supposed to be a Rock Band or Guitar Hero styled game. It's made by the same company, Harmonix. It's a rhythm game. It does what it does. It's fine. You just have Fortnite characters that you can select as your avatar to use on the stage. They even included the battle stage, which I think is cool for people that enjoy that kind of thing. But Festival in and of itself is not an incomplete mode. Now, what about Rocket Racing? I don't think Rocket Racing's problem was that it was incomplete. I think it was just not what the Fortnite community was really looking for out of a racing game. People like to talk about how the gameplay really isn't that advanced, but Loot Station has actually proven me wrong on multiple occasions when it came to that point. There's really crazy maneuvers, strategies, and routes you can take inside of that game. There are a lot of techniques that I was unfamiliar with when I went up against Loot and some other people in his server. When you go up against people that have played that game for any considerable amount of time, there is a tremendous skill gap there. Those people are really good at it. But like I said, I just do not think that this is what the Fortnite community was looking for. Now, look, to be fair, I think it would have benefited from more features. Like, it's always good to have more content for a game. I'm not denying that or trying to argue against having more content. But if you look at where Rocket Racing started and even the trajectory that it was on, it gave us a decent amount of content. It's just that the player base didn't resonate with it. Also, here's a point that I don't know if anyone ever mentions, but isn't that kind of the purpose of live service gaming? Like, a lot of these games that are live service, and mind you, free, they don't cost you anything to play, aren't the purpose of a lot of them to not be complete? That way you can get player feedback to customize the game and change it as it goes along. Now, I know that there are going to be exceptions to that, like Helldivers, for example, right? But Helldivers also is a game that you had to pay up front for. So there is a certain level of polish that I would expect over something like that, as opposed to something like Rocket Racing. Like, people forget that when Battle Royale came out, at least Fortnite Battle Royale, the game was incomplete. Heck, Fortnite is still updating and patching and changing things now, but right now we don't look at Fortnite Battle Royale as an incomplete game. It's established enough and they know enough to where they kind of have a good meta or a good understanding of what direction to take the game consistently now. But with these new offerings, it's not like that. They're kind of testing the waters, and I don't think people really give Epic enough grace to do that. And this kind of gets me to one of the big points of this video, which is like, what's the point in being upset at the Metaverse? Like, once again, if it doesn't cost you anything to be able to play the full experience of these games, even if they are unfinished, why get mad about it? I can understand giving critiques and feedback to help the game, help the culture of the game, help the developers understand where you want to take the game and move it, but I just don't see the point in getting upset. Now, I guess the reason why everyone was mad was because these new modes were put inside of Fortnite, but they were taking resources from Battle Royale. That way we were getting less content in the game overall, less content in BR to get new games that are completely unpolished and unfinished. However, I don't think BR suffers as much as people claim that it does from the addition of the Metaverse. First of all, when it comes to Festival and LEGO, they have their own individual teams working on those modes. Rocket Racing was the mode that was actually taking up the majority of the resources from BR. At least that's my understanding of it. And even then, now that that mode is no longer being supported, those people have gone back to actually supporting the Battle Royale. So if we're looking at the modes that exist currently, well, they don't really seem to be taking anything away from Battle Royale. Think about this too, even in Chapter 4, which gave us less content than what we were used to in terms of events with the Battle Royale and LTMs, right? That was still one of the best chapters in Fortnite history, gameplay-wise. Like, the gameplay was amazing. If you just look past the fact that the storyline kind of took a backseat, right? And that we didn't get as many live events, but just actually played the game for what it is, but just played the Battle Royale, have the Battle Royale experience, that was a solid chapter. It's a reason why content creators like Ninja and myself put that in such high regard. Epic was coming up with so many good ideas. Even the collabs were insanely fun. Chapter 4 Season 2 was probably the best season for collabs ever, in my opinion, when it comes to Fortnite. Now let's look at Chapter 5. Even if you didn't like some of the themes or the concepts that were given to us in that chapter, there was a lot of content thrown our way. We had 2 LTMs that were given to us. We had more consistent live events. Granted, they were mini ones, but in BR's history, there's always been a lot of mini events. So that's not really anything different there. And then when I look at the content for each individual season, they were packed with a ton of updates. Once again, you may not like the content that was given, and arguments can be made for that, but when Wrecked came out, that was a season that made me realize, wait, hold on a second, the Metaverse isn't preventing us from getting any crazy amount of content or any crazy season ideas. This is an insane, brand new, never before seen concept with a ton of content and updates. Like, there were so many things that they kept adding week to week. Now listen, could the seasons in Chapter 5 been executed better? Absolutely. However, when you're looking at the amount of content that was given and the variety of content that was given, the themes, all of that, we were not given any less than we were given in Chapter 4. As a matter of fact, we were given more content in Chapter 5 than we were given in the previous chapter. Also, keep in mind, during this time, Epic gave us the best mode ever, which is Fortnite Reload. So there were a lot of really good things that came out of Chapter 5. Now, on the subject of Reload, there's something interesting that I think we need to talk about here. When you look at that mode, Ballistic, and OG, do we consider those to be Metaverse modes? You could make an argument either way. I think, generally speaking, when we're talking about the Metaverse, those modes don't really apply. If you were to sit Tim Sweeney down or any dev that works at Epic and ask them what exactly is the Metaverse, I think they would probably tell you that it's modes that exist separate outside of what Fortnite's core theme is. So things that are outside of the shooter-based experiences of Fortnite. In essence, things that don't have to do with Battle Royale or the shooting genre in general. So Rocket Racing, Lego, and Festival would definitely fit into this category. And you know what? Even Fall Guys, which we all seem to forget that Fall Guys is a part of Fortnite. I never see it advertised. I never hear anybody talk about it. I don't think I've even ever played Fall Guys inside of Fortnite, but it exists there. And this is where we get into the next part of this conversation, because it looks like Tim Sweeney's vision is to have all video games inside of Fortnite at some point. They want Fortnite to be the ultimate platform. I think Tim Sweeney has even gone on record to say that he wouldn't mind Minecraft as well as Roblox inside of Fortnite. So in essence, it's a platform that can host other platforms. Now, as I'm saying this, I can feel a lot of you guys cringing right now. And look, I get it. That's not what you came to Fortnite for. That's not what I came to Fortnite for. However, there's a bigger picture here that we're not looking at. I'm going to save that for a little bit later, because there's something else we need to talk about first, which is, why don't I think that the Metaverse has failed? I don't think it's going to be the case that every single Metaverse mode is going to be a success, but I do think it's an interesting experiment. And I think if there's ever going to be a game that is trying to create some kind of Metaverse experience, it would have to be Fortnite. It is the perfect game to experiment with this concept. And to be fair, even though we didn't know it, this was the intention the entire time. So everybody that wants to talk about what real Fortnite is, this was always the purpose for Fortnite. Going all the way back to when Save the World was the only game, they were making plans for this. I think one of the reasons why I personally have so much respect for this Metaverse project is because it's very symbolic or reminiscent of what we as content creators do. We don't always make the same kind of content. At least if you're a good content creator, you will experiment with your approach, your style, the kind of audience that you're trying to capture. There are so many aspects to content creation that have to be altered and changed over time. A really successful content creator will figure out a way to reinvent themselves probably every 3 to 5 years. Even as I record this video for you right now, I'm going through this rebrand process. I don't have everything figured out right now, but I'm putting pieces together to try to figure out how to expand my brand out into other horizons. And typically when you start to do this, this is where people get frustrated. I've already done this, I think, 2 times just within the Fortnite niche. When I first started making Fortnite content, I used to play with viewers all the time. It was viewer streams almost every day. But the problem was it was unsustainable. It got to a point where the only thing anybody ever wanted to do was to come on stream and play with me live. They didn't want to actually sit down, watch streams, and hang out like I originally had intended for people to do. So what I had to do, I went through some growing pains where my viewership dipped from, I was averaging like 25 to 30 to where I got back down to 3 or 4. Then let's fast forward to another era where I was focusing really hard on Fortnite theory, trying to come up with a new Fortnite theory almost every day, covering some different aspect of the Fortnite storyline. It got to a point where that wasn't as compelling to me as well as other people. The storyline was taking a dip, and I didn't want my channel to be dependent on that one thing. So what did I do? I moved away from storyline to commentary. And to be fair, I had always done commentary on the channel, but not to the degree that I do it now. Once again, this was a change that frustrated a lot of people, but it ended up being a net positive in the long run because it helped me to absorb a new audience that was more in line with the direction that I was going. And now, fast forward to present day, I'm going to do the same thing again. What am I trying to get to when it comes to the Metaverse conversation? How does this relate to the metaverse point. What a lot of people don't realize, and I don't think I've heard anybody ever explain it this way before, but Epic is creating a series of games for an audience that doesn't exist yet.
I think that a lot of what PK is saying is accurate to a cent. Honestly, I don't even know about accurate. Let me tell you what. Maybe he's had a conversation with the CEO and all of these, like all the higher ups of Fortnite, and maybe he has like inside information. But I'm telling you guys right now, if you guys have watched Ready Player One, that universe or VR where when you go in, you can do anything, you can go anywhere. That is what Fortnite is trying to be, the Oasis. Fortnite is trying to be the Oasis. Years down the line, I wouldn't even be shocked if they changed the name of Fortnite to just be like something like The Lobby. Look at what they have the rights to. They have Spider-Man in the game, right? They have Marvel. They have all of Marvel. They have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They have Halo. Look at all the anime that they have. Dude, they are so damn close to having almost what feels like almost everything in the game. Almost everything is inside of Fortnite. They have the rights to, and when I say the rights, I mean, it's in the game, right? And it's not being removed. Dude, they're just missing this big jump. It's gonna be VR and it's gonna be all realistic and it's gonna be all at the highest level. They want to have you be able to play Valorant in this game or attack shooter. They want you to be able to have a Minecraft-esque in this game. It's all coming. I don't know if we all forgot last year or like 2 years ago when they released Creative 2.0. Dude, it is on the way. Fortnite is going to be a game where you can play any game. The game developers are going to be making games inside this game. You're going to have indie companies making games inside of Fortnite. I'm telling you, dude, that's their goal. So what PK is saying, it's absolutely true. Like if you would want, go play Minecraft. Minecraft is 100% has more content than Fortnite Lego. It does. But Fortnite Lego is still in Fortnite, right? The tac shooter, it's still in Fortnite. You can race. The racing game, racing's still in Fortnite. Dude, it's all going to be in here, and their vision is so great. They want that Fortnite is going to be, or is trying to be, or wants to be in the next 5-10 years, to be the Oasis. So I understand what PK is saying. He's not wrong, but I just think he needs the vision. He needs to zoom out a little bit, and they're waiting.
Listen, guys, I don't agree with Ninja on everything, but he sees the big picture. You may not like Rocket Racing or Lego or Festival, and heck, I'm not a big fan of those modes either. This is not what I come to play Fortnite for, which kind of ties into the other point of the video, which is like the flaw of the metaverse. As it is right now, these new modes that exist inside of Fortnite do not cater towards Fortnite's core audience. This isn't what a lot of us are attracted to. As someone who's looking to play really intense competitive shooting games, I'm not trying to go out and play Fortnite Festival. I don't want to play a rhythm game, at least most of the time. There are some times when I will go in with friends, we'll mess around, we'll play some songs, and I have a blast doing it. But that's not where the majority of my time is going to be spent. The same thing goes for Lego, and the same thing goes for Rocket Racing. The Fortnite audience is just not primed for this. And I think that's why you've seen the bleed off of players from these modes. They were designed to be an experiment to gauge the audience's reaction to the modes themselves. Could we actually put something like this inside of Fortnite? Could we have a Minecraft-based mode, but set it around Lego? Could we have a partnership with Lego? Could we sell Lego cosmetics in the item shop? Could we have a racing-based mode? I mean, we already have cars inside of Fortnite. Well, why not give the cars some more utility? Okay, well, let's try this over here. You know, here at Epic Games, we own Harmonix, but, you know, could we actually incorporate their rhythm game inside of Fortnite for free as something that people can try out if they want to? And once again, I think those experiments are cool, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to be flawed and not have problems. For example, recently, Epic just took away the library of songs that were available for players inside of Fortnite Festival. I think there's only 60 songs now out of the couple hundred or however many that they had, which I get it. If you didn't buy those, it definitely does suck. But at the same time, I'm also not surprised that they did this. Before this was announced, I thought that was the way that the songs always worked, that there was always like a limited number of them in the item shop and they got rotated every week. Like, think about that for a second. What would be the point of buying the songs if the songs didn't rotate out? That's kind of the point of why they're there to purchase in the first place. The core game is free, and you'll always have a certain song set list that's available to you, but if they want people to buy the songs, then they can't be available all the time. Otherwise, everything about the mode would be free and they couldn't make any money on it. Like, what would be the purpose of purchasing a song and having it in your library if it was free for everyone all the time? Like, I just don't understand how anybody was surprised by that. And Honestly, I'm not necessarily sure if that's the worst thing either. Once again, the core game is free, and I understand that this works different than, like, let's say Rock Band did, right? Where the songs were always available. But remember, once again, you also had to pay for Rock Band. And also keep in mind, you couldn't play those songs until you purchased them. With Fortnite, you didn't have to purchase the song to play them. They just had to be in the item shop on that day. So if they are going to turn a profit on the game, which they should want to, well, they're going to have to be there for a temporary amount of time. I honestly think the biggest flaw of these metaverse modes is that they kind of split the player base. And it's not really so much the rocket racing, Lego, and festival, like those legacy metaverse modes. That's what we'll call those. But things like Reload, Ballistic, OG, if we include that in the metaverse, right? Those modes are, since they're shooter based, they do take away from the bigger pool of people that play BR. But then you have to ask yourself the question, would these people actually still be on Fortnite if these other modes didn't exist? And that even includes the other modes like Lego and Festival, the legacy metaverse modes. And this right here, this is what's leading me to the big point that I haven't heard a single person ever bring up. And quite frankly, it's so simple that I'm surprised that no one has asked this before. But how long do you expect to play Fortnite? See, that right there, that's the big point. And that's why I said earlier, Fortnite is creating these modes for an audience that doesn't exist yet. There are a lot of kids that are being born that in the next 5 to 7 years, they're gonna really love these modes. And if Fortnite was just to stay a BR and not capitalize as well as leverage its success into other areas, I think that would be a huge missed opportunity. See, everyone wants to be mad at Epic for not taking their feelings into consideration or expanding into other things, but they never ask themselves the question, well, how long am I actually gonna be playing Fortnite for? Are you going to be playing Fortnite for the next 5 to 10 years? If you're naturally going to drift away from Fortnite because real life happens and you're going to find other things to do, then Epic's got to figure out how they're going to attract new players. And just doing it through BR is very ignorant and short-sighted. They can't do that. They've got to plan 5, 10 years down the road, and the metaverse is what's setting all of this up. Will it come at the expense of some aspects of Fortnite that you like? Potentially. But that's not necessarily a deal breaker, at least for a lot of us. And this is what I want you guys to start asking yourselves. One of the biggest things I see Fortnite players ignoring and not asking themselves is this decision a deal breaker? Or more importantly, how does this change negatively impact what I enjoy the most from Fortnite? Let me use myself as an example. I love Fortnite Reload. I will glaze it till the ends of the earth. It is my favorite mode inside of Fortnite right now. Even when the loot pool is crap, I tend to have fun with the game. And if I get tired of Reload, I go back and play BR. BR and Reload are the two things that I enjoy the most out of this game and what I came to the game for. As long as both of those things are being updated consistently and figuring out new ways to keep me engaged, I don't really care what happens to the metaverse in some ways. Like, I don't want to see it fail, but I also don't really care about the changes that are made to Lego or Rocket Racing or Festival because they don't impact what I enjoy the most. Now, if you want to talk about carrying in a broader sense, like maybe you personally enjoy Rocket Racing or you enjoy Festival and you want to see those modes be the best version of what they are, I can agree with that. For your sake, I want to see that happen. But I'm just talking about me personally, what I enjoy. Are these modes getting in the way of that? And the answer unequivocally is no. Once again, that's what I figured out last year when Wrecked came out. I loved Wrecked last year, and I know a lot of people didn't, but Wrecked wasn't bad or Wrecked wasn't riddled with controversy because the metaverse existed. It's because the concepts that they presented to us within that mode just weren't what the majority of the player base wanted. Same thing with Ballistic. Like, I understand Ballistic needs work. I don't hate the fact that these are test maps that they're putting out for Ballistic. Ballistic, for me personally, like that game style, that game type, is not one that I enjoy that much. I played more polished games in that genre, like Valorant. It doesn't excite me. I'm not mad at Epic for trying something new and experimenting because, once again, as a content creator myself, that's what I do. And that's what I want all of you guys to do. Throughout your life, you're going to experiment with a lot of different things, and there's going to be tons of people that tell you not to do that. As long as these things aren't hurting you personally or are helping you grow in some way, gain some new skill, or learn something new, do it. Experiment. Figure things out. Now, guys, listen, I know I hit you with a lot of points today. I'm very curious to see what you guys are going to say in the comment section. I think this is a conversation that we've needed to have here on this channel for a long time. But there's another one that I think is just as important. It's going to be the video that's linked right here up on the screen. It's some uncomfortable truths about Fortnite. Some of the talking points that we had today kind of mirror some of the things that were said in that video. But I want you to leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think about this whole metaverse conversation first. And then If you haven't already, go ahead and watch the video that I put out about the uncomfortable truth about Fortnite. I think you'll really enjoy that. Love y'all. See you soon. Peace.